there was a piece I'm like, Debbie, I need these $40,000, $50,000. Like, I haven't found them. I need some renovation money, and it's harder to get renovation money versus just, original loan. And she's like, oh, I can lend them to you. And I'm like, oof, if this goes wrong, not only do I lose a lender, but she loses a boyfriend too. I'm like, and she's like just risking that and being trusting me enough to know that, hey, I'm not going to do her wrong and this is going to be successful. It was like really, really impactful for me.
Welcome to the Our Family Invest podcast, where we explore what happens when family, purpose, and entrepreneurship align. I'm Mike, a former Maui firefighter who reached financial freedom in just 5 years through real estate investing.
And I'm Caroline, a Maui-based realtor here to educate, empower, and elevate my clients to make smart real estate moves, whether right here at home or through my nationwide network.
Together, we're chasing our full potential as individuals, as a couple, and as a family. We're here to build a life that matters. And each week we share the stories of couples who inspire us to love harder, dream bigger, and grow bolder. So join us and let's learn, share, and grow together. Okay, today we are excited to introduce Santiago and Debbie Martinez. Debbie is a physician assistant who transitioned from full-time trauma and critical care to per diem work so she could focus on what matters most. She's built a backyard paradise with an incredible garden and is learning to slow down, be present, and truly enjoy the moment. Santi is a world-class martial artist, a real estate investor, and adventure seeker who's built a thriving flipping company by combining forward-thinking, cutting-edge technology, discipline, and freedom into his business. Together, they're creating a life that blends adventure, growth, and presence. All right, you guys. Well, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you. But before we dive into any of the questions, I kind of want to know who each of you are at your core. So if I were to peel back the onion on the two of you and had you two answer for each other, Santi, what would you say, who is Debbie to you? And then maybe Debbie, you can take that the opposite way and tell us who Santi is to you.
I love it. No, I love the intro. If I were to describe Debbie, someone that loves to be in nature. I think her connection starts coming from being around in the forest or in trails, or now it's like our garden or the garden that she's put together in our backyard, and just loves being able to like see things grow. There's something within her that just like has so much joy when she sees that. And maybe there's a layer there too of like, there's like this joyous soul that sometimes is a little shy of like this new people around, but then just like when she gets comfortable, she's like this like silly, joyful human that just like I love so much.
Oh, that's great.
What would I say about Santi? I actually remember like pretty early on in our relationship, I met his uncle for the first time and he said, tell me what you think about Santi. And I said, I think he's the best person I've ever met. And I think that's true. Like he's just like so kind-hearted. He's dedicated, extremely hardworking. And I think like, I'm like going to cry about this. I think what makes him like so unique is that like at his core, like he's just like love. Like he wants like people around him to like feel love and like feel cared for and like accept it. And he does like a really good job of like bringing that into like every avenue of his life. So I'm just lucky that I got to marry him.
Yeah, well, I can vouch for that. I only met him one time in person, but it was such an instant connection that I was like, I need to know this guy way more. I want this guy in my inner circle.
Yeah, you have a great energy.
Oh, I love that. It was so cool because like, when you meet somebody and you're like, they're my tribe, they are my people. And it's like, there's no rational piece around there, right? Like, sure, we connected over Dan Martell stuff, but then there's just like this person, I want to get closer to them. Yeah. And I very much felt that.
I love that.
Okay, so you guys are now married. You met online during COVID. So can you kind of walk us through what your first date was like? Was it in person? And what was that spark that kind of set the tone for your relationship?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we met online. We met on Hinge. And I am very much somebody who is like, I will never online date. Like, that's not for me. I very much am like, we need to meet organically. Like, but then I was living in Philly. I had just started a fellowship down there and the city was closing down. I knew nobody. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll just go on this app that people have been talking about. And we matched and like right away, like I think how it worked is like I could like his photo or something. And then if I liked his photo, he could message me back. Sort of like it almost looked like Instagram to some extent.
Mm.
And he messaged me back. And like right away we clicked and like we spent like 2 messages on the app. And then he's like, give me your phone number. And I gave him my number. And then we texted. And like the really, I think, catch part was that like as I was texting him back, my phone rang and it was him. And like he says it now, he's like, I knew you were texting, so like you had to answer the phone.
I put her in a dilemma.
And so we ended up talking like right away, like spoke for like an hour and a half on the phone, like super easy. And then I was working in a COVID ICU at the time as a PA, and I was very like, I was super new. Nobody really knew like the door's gonna slam. Nobody really knew like what was gonna happen with it and stuff. And so I was very cautious about like meeting up with people and things like that. So we ended up talking for like, I don't know, like a month probably before we even met in person.
After enough time, I'm like, okay, you're really cool in person and over video and text and stuff, but like, is this real or are we gonna do something or not? Like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And so I always joke with him, I'm like, you had the easiest first date ever. Like nothing was open. And so I was like, just come over, I'll like cook you dinner or something.
Amazing.
Yeah. And it was like super easy and just
It certainly flowed.
Yeah.
We both very much felt like, oh, this is meant to be, or there's like a layer of like ease. Like since we already had talked, we've connected, we've FaceTimed, so certainly like an easy first date for me for sure.
Nice. So since then, you guys have obviously been together and you've grown a lot since then. What has changed or evolved, or has everything kind of stayed the same with each other since that first meeting?
No, I think something that we'll talk about sometimes is like the Debbie and Santi 5 years ago is much different than Debbie and Santi now. Back then, there was areas where maybe Debbie was more career oriented, or she's like, hey, when we have kids, I'm going to keep on working. And that's just that. I'm like, okay, you know, like I have a little bit of a different vision for the future, but let's play with it. Now there's layers of her seeing that it's, you know, like working 25 hours a shift, 25 hour shifts, or working night shifts is not something that she likes. That transfer from like strong independent woman to, you know, like per diem's not that bad, like working on my garden I enjoy.
Yeah, it's very different. I think I recently was talking to a friend and he was asking me like what work was like, and I said, oh, sometimes I had to work 25-hour shifts. And he's like, 25-hour shifts? And I said, yeah. And him and I had done a go ruck together like years ago, and like I don't know if you're familiar with that, but essentially you like are in a team of maybe like 12 people or so. It's led by like somebody in the military, and the whole idea is like you stay up all night and you walk/hike mountains for like 12 hours, and you carry like as a team you have to collectively carry like odd objects and like weighted bags and stuff like that. And so like I said to him, I'm like, sometimes work reminded me of being on a go ruck. And he was like, and like, I don't know why, but that just like kind of dawned on me recently. Like, oh, like at one point in my life, and this is like when we met, I thought like success was like feeling like I was doing a go ruck all the time, or like that. Like I have to be running myself into the ground in order to be like successful.
Yeah.
And so that's been the biggest thing for me is just like, wait, I can like spend time with friends and family and like take care of myself and grow my garden, and it doesn't mean I'm not a success.
And hang out with Santi. And what do you think shifted that?
I don't really know for sure. I think I spent a lot of time like working on myself personally. I think it was more like I just knew it wasn't sustainable. Like I'm always tired. Like I wasn't enjoyable to be around sometimes. And like the vision I had for my future, I knew like what I was doing like wasn't going to get me there. I'm like, oh, I have this dream of like having a family and being an athlete again and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, but I'm heading in this direction. And I think like being with Santi just kind of gave me like the grace to like like give myself some grace and be like, you're enough as a person, even if you're not, driving yourself into the ground all the time. So,
or even like a really good example was right when she ended her full-time work earlier this year, and probably like 2-3 weeks after, she's like, Santi, like, I used to feel this like blurriness, or like there was just a layer of fog. I don't feel that anymore. Is that normal? I'm like,
do you feel this way all the time? He's like, yeah. I'm like, whoa, this is so cool.
There's so much that we don't realize is happening to our bodies when we work, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that all work is bad. Certainly it's not. But stresses compile and compound. And one of my best friends is a doctor in Maryland. And he's one of the smartest guys I know. Basically has like a photographic memory. And we talk about stuff all the time. And he is stressed out all the time because he works all the time. Right. But he also takes time to get out in nature, takes time to just like unwind, because it's so important to who you are, to get back to center. So I think, what you're doing with, going to per diem work is so admirable. And I think that, spending time working on yourself is so important. And it's something that we see too few people really spending time doing. And that is inspirational to me, to see you doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would love to see your garden, by the way.
Sometime. Yeah. I have it in my vision. Yeah. So,
all right. So
some pictures.
Yeah, please. So, all right. So Santi, tell us about your business, unwind it, unpack it. What do you do? Who do you serve? Why do you do it?
Yes. So about 5 years ago or so, it's when I started heading into real estate investing, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to fully dive into it. It's like a season in my life where athletics was ending. I was world-class wrestler, shifting over into, okay, business now. We buy undesirable houses, and we either renovate them and rent them, or we renovate them and sell them to a lot of times first-time home buyers. And we have a 55 unit portfolio. It's been really cool journey these last 5 years or so, and a ton of lessons that business has brought.
Yeah. And you're in the Pennsylvania area, right?
We're in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, and we're probably around an hour and a half from Philly, an hour and something from New York City. It's like a pretty decent sized metropolitan area in this sector of Pennsylvania, or this area.
Yeah.
What was your first business win look like, and what did it look like? And was this prior to meeting Debbie, that you were into real estate?
So I started in real estate before I met Debbie, and it was me buying like a 3-unit and living in it and kind of getting the road started. Probably when we met.
When I met him, he was living with a friend of his, like in his friend's basement. And then our first date was at my apartment. And then our second date, I came up. We now live in the Lehigh Valley, and I came up to Lehigh Valley, which is where he was living. And he had like no furniture, because he had just moved into like this apartment. He had like no furniture. He took his outdoor table and like brought it in to make like a little dinner for me.
Because you got to understand, like right before that, I was somewhat of a nomad. I was competing for Columbia. I was wrestling. I came over here purely to like renovate some properties because I didn't have enough money to pay contractors. Yeah. So I was living with a friend, just figuring things out. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I ended up house hacking and moving into one of our 3 units, outdated apartment, just very mediocre, no furniture. And I'm like, and I think the truck that I had, it was like a 98 Ford Ranger with a ladder rack in the back. I was using it for construction. And I'm like, I don't know what she's going to think. Hopefully my personality really comes out.
Good thing you had that history on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the first biggest win that comes to mind, she kind of reminded me earlier, is I was doing a lot of single family houses or a lot of small multi, and a lead came for a 5 unit. And I'm like, like internal kind of maybe like self-sabotage, like, oh, you're not ready for that. You don't have, the resources to put that together and stuff. It was beat up. And it was almost one of those things where I was about to brush off and I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to put an offer. I'm not going to call her back or whatever it is. And I remember I'm like, all right, it's a little out of what we do. We usually smaller properties. This one requires probably like at the time, maybe like 150 worth of reno. And it was like a bigger budget than what we normally have. And I'm like, I'm just going to overestimate it and give her my number. And, like whatever comes out, comes out. And I remember it was like right before one of the meetings that we were about to have. And I'm like, I'm just going to give her a call. I call her and she was asking like really low even to start with, but it was like 350. And I'm like, oh, Danielle, like I think I could do it, but I can do it maybe like at 240. And I'm just quiet. She's like, can you do 245? I'm like,
well, okay. Meanwhile, internally,
yes. Wow. So just like first biggest negotiation. Now it's probably like maybe like $1 million building, just like nice, like nice set of like a nice property overall, performing and stuff. So, but that was like the first
that's
big
a
win.
good win.
Yeah.
Yeah. From start to finish. Love it.
Yeah.
I think it gave him like a lot of confidence. Like I noticed like after that, like he talked about it a lot. You could tell he was proud of it. And I think like he had a lot of friends in real estate at the time who were like, what he would have said were like above him, were like further ahead than him. And I think what I noticed was that like it gave him like I'm not as far behind, quote unquote, as like I thought that I was. So
yeah.
And now he's recently bought some 8 units. So
Nice.
It kind of like I connected a lot with combat sports. I think I connect a ton with combat sports, but it was almost like a big first win. Like you beat another ranked guy, you won your first national title, right? It's like just kind of like fills your lungs with like some capacity. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yes.
Not as scary as you thought.
Yeah, we haven't won any national titles in anything yet.
there's still time.
I don't know what that feels like.
We have to pick something first. Did you guys ever have any moments of doubt? I mean, you've been on this journey now, especially with the growth journey and transitions, where and learning to live with each other after being so independent. So were there any moments of doubt, whether in business, marriage, a relationship, where you just thought, maybe I do want to throw the towel in, but what made you push forward?
Yeah, actually, like pretty early on, I would say, in our relationship, like when we first started dating, I think we both had a lot of doubts about the relationship. I think, like you said, we were both very independent people. And not only were we trying to like bring two lives together, but two like very different lives. Like we've talked a lot about this, like our lifestyle beforehand was very different. The culture that we grew up in was very different. Like the way we were raised, even like our first language was different, like a lot of just like differences that while we liked each other, initially we were like, oh, wow, like maybe these are like too many differences, like that this is like not going to work.
And it's funny, like we pushed enough on that. We're like, all right, we're going to go our separate ways. And then we're like, we just couldn't get away from each other. And then there was a layer of like, maybe these differences are what make us and what could make us stronger. So there's a layer there of like, oh, and so like we ended up kind of committing to that. And we realized we make a better team because of these differences. And there was, I think, like another moment that really reinforced it. It was almost like, I was mentally like, okay, this is not meant to be. We're not gonna go about this. Like almost like I'm about to quit. And I remember her being in bed and she's like, you're not gonna do it. Like we're gonna stick together. And that's that. Like, I don't care what you think in your head, but we're sticking through this. And I'm like, oh, I think we are.
Like he was like, maybe we should break up. And I was just like, no, like, we're not doing that. So like come up with a different plan because that's not the option.
I love it.
That's great. So I have this vision of, Santi being this like go, explosive growth, like competitive arena kind of guy. And then Debbie being this like frolicking in the garden, watering your plants and like making bonsai trees and whatnot. And I don't know how accurate any of that is, but I imagine that there's some kind of tension there sometimes between like explosive growth and slow down. How do you balance that?
Yeah.
So good.
That's so funny.
So, I think something that Debbie really helps me with is like a layer of balance. Almost like doesn't matter how much like the problems that you face out there in business or what you overcame. Like she cares, but it's like there's still a layer of like, are you here? Are you listening to me? I don't care how tired you are. Like I need you to pay attention to what I'm telling you. So with that, I'm like, oh, business, we're growing, we're figuring things out, the growth that's happening there is going to continue happening. But I also need to make sure that I'm home and there for her and eventually for our family, right? So just a piece of, I'll take a quick step back. I think like
slow down a little.
I think at the conference, one of the things that Thatch mentioned was like, if you're doing business, but you're missing your kids' baseball games, you're doing business wrong, right? So like Debbie allows me to do business right and know, hey, sure, I need to make the calls. Sure, there's like an unlimited like to-do list. What are my priorities? Let me get those done. But I need to show up home and be present.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like I've always been like a very driven person too. So like I totally respect like his like the vision for the business and like the growth that he's, working on. And I think what's really helpful is that like we both sort of have like the same long-term vision where like we want to grow our family, like we want to be financially independent and like we want to be like present eventually, like at all times, right? For like kids and things like that. And so the way I see it is like, if that means like this is a period of like, a lot of like drive forward in order to get there, then like, okay, like I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So I think it just works.
And even there's layers of, like you can say you're supportive, but then there was layers of Debbie, like when we're still dating and stuff, the same 5-unit, I needed extra renovation money. And there was a piece I'm like, Debbie, I need these $40,000-$50,000. Like, I haven't found them. I need some renovation money, and it's harder to get renovation money versus just, original loan. And she's like, oh, I can lend them to you. And I'm like, oof, if this goes wrong, not only do I lose a lender, but she loses a boyfriend too. I'm like, and she's like just risking that and being like, trusting me enough to know that, hey, I'm not going to do her wrong and this is going to be successful. It was like really, really impactful for me.
Yeah. What was it? What was her terms? Was it 12% and 2 points or?
I think it was 12 and 2. Yeah.
Hey, well, that's great. Good job, Debbie. I can see the drive.
You got to remember, like, I knew nothing about real estate when I met him either. Like, he told me he was a real estate investor. And our second date, he actually was like, oh, will you come with me to look at this property? And my idea of real estate at that point was like, oh, I'm going to an open house. Like, he wants me to take pictures of the open house.
Yeah.
And then he's like, can you take pictures of this? And it's like studs and like nails. I'm like, what is this guy doing?
And not to mention that he invites you to his basement dungeon that doesn't have any furniture in it to cook you dinner.
Well,
this isn't what I anticipated. I'm thinking more Chip and Joanna Gaines here.
Yeah. Welcome to behind the scenes. Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, where's HGTV? Because this ain't it.
Hey family, real quick. If you'd rather watch your content, head over to Our Family Invests on YouTube. You'll find this episode and all our episodes over there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your takeaways in the comments. Now, back to the show. Yeah, TV is not all real. Yeah, I mean, real estate investing, that's where the value comes, is the hoarder houses. So it is not glamorous. Yeah, I'm glad you spilled the beans early on, Santi.
Now I'm like the opposite. Like we've talked about finances recently, and I used to be the person that was like, I want to see my money in my savings account. Now he's like, money's kind of tight. I'm like, we got to get more properties. We got to get things working for us.
That is so cool. And that, to me, that's the magic of being on the same team for the end goal, right? And that goal can shift, but you guys are so committed to each other and to your future that you make these pivots work, which is really awesome.
Yeah. Was there any kind of mindset shift that you guys had to go through in order to get onto the same page?
I think something that's helped was a layer of like whenever there would be like a back and forth or like maybe like a battle or something or friction, there's a layer of like reminding myself, I'm like, she's on the same team as I am. Like we're not trying to fight against each other. And with that, it helped me open up a little bit. Even yesterday, like we see some things differently. And I'm like, hey, I'm doing a poor job at reading your book. Can you like help me understand it a little bit more? Right. And then with that, then when I don't feel super heard, I'm like, hey, I don't think you're paying attention to my book. Can I share my book with you?
I think that's great. When you two now look at success, what is one habit, daily non-negotiable that has made the biggest difference for you both?
Ooh, that's a
There's
good
two
question.
things
Oh,
that I
really?
could think about. Yeah.
Can't
So
think
like,
of any.
and the
Teamwork.
two things that I think you'll think about them after I say them. So on a weekly basis, we call them coffee chats. Before they were just weekly meetings between Debbie and I. She's like, they sound too professional. This is bogus. Like,
Serious.
what if we call them coffee chats? I'm like, okay, let's call them coffee chats. And that helps us kind of like line up. And the other piece is we'll do date nights every 2 weeks, and then we'll have her plan one and me plan one. Now it kind of like brings a less stress or of like, oh yeah, date night tonight is like let's order in and eat together, right? And it's like, oh, help us kind of like, think a little bit more about it or more intentional.
And it's kind of fun too because it takes like the pressure off of like, let's say him always planning a date night. And like, I love surprises. It's like one of my favorite things. And so like every like once a month, like I get a surprise and like I get to surprise him too once a month. So it's like kind of a fun like little thing. And like, date night was yesterday and we cut a tree down in our backyard and made a bonfire. Like it wasn't like
Very cool.
this.
That's actually really cool though. And that's your happy place. So that sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
It was
wow.
great.
That's great. We just started this mentor family program, and one of the things that we're trying to do in there is something similar where we plan different days for each of us in our family. So like if it's a date night, like I'll plan one week and then she'll plan one, and then we'll have our son Nico, he'll
He gets
plan
one
one
too.
too. So we have,
Oh.
Friday family nights, right? Or whatever it is. So tonight is Friday that we're recording this. And so we'll have, one of us plans that night, and then next week is someone else and whatever. So I love the idea of passing it along because it gives everybody ownership, right? Of one week. And it's not like, hey, we're going to sit down and watch the SpongeBob SquarePants movie for 3 weeks in a row. I don't actually know if there's a SpongeBob SquarePants
There
movie,
is.
but there probably is. But like, if I gave Nico the choice every single week, then he would be choosing the same thing every single week. But
Right.
this kind of breaks it up a little bit and makes it fun for everyone.
Yeah, those are good tactical things. And we've had for years now coffee and, which it is that it's coffee and. So we can talk about business, we can talk about the week, we can talk about whatever needs to come up, but it's in kind of like a nicer setting rather than a business meeting.
It's completely informal. It's off the books. And it's like, we show up and we're going to get coffee. We're going to talk, and whatever happens next, coffee and.
Yeah.
Right. So
I like your coffee chats.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
yeah, that's so good. All right. So how do you guys stay aligned as you got all these things going on moving forward instead of being pulled apart?
I think the coffee chats, like we just mentioned, is a big piece of it. For us, it's like a way to like go through like, hey, what's coming up in the week, like, do we have a wedding coming up? Is there travel coming up? If there is, like, who's going to be like booking a hotel for that? Who's going to be planning that? Things like that. And I just think too, like like informally, like we're always like touching base with each other.
Or even like just with our date nights, there's just like you're giving space for conversation, right? And it's like expecting that human that you started dating or you married to be exactly the same and then holding them to that standard. That's like people change, there's like a flow. So almost like being able to touch base on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, minimum, and seeing those shifts happen help.
And I think like the biggest thing, and this was something I learned like from this relationship, was just like communication is so important. Like, even if it hurts, even if it's hard, like, even if you don't know what's going to come out the other side of it, like voicing where you're at or like what's going on, like so important. Like,
Yeah. I think something that I've learned probably in the last 2-3 years or so is before I would probably take like how Debbie's feeling or what she's saying very like rationally, right? It's like, I can't believe she said that, right? And now I'm like, oh, when she's saying something or feeling some kind of way, I'm like, she's just
she just needs a
expressing.
hug.
Yeah. I'm like, come here, I'm just gonna hold you. Or, and sometimes I made the mistake, I'm like, I'm trying to hold her and she's like, get
Don't
away from
touch
me,
me.
don't. And I'm like, oh, she doesn't need a hug, she just needs me to be here for her. I'm like, oh, differentiating those moments is hard, but there's are pieces that I'm starting to learn, and it's like it's made a lot of a difference, because I'm like, how she's feeling doesn't depend on, like, I don't have to depend on how she's feeling. Yeah. I could help her or I could not, but I'm right here for her.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is ninja level intuitiveness right there.
Yeah. And that's comes with checking in and the communication, because if you're gone for 25 hours, 50 hours, and that's repeated process, and you're always making calls, you're not going to be able to have that connection and be able to be in tune. So that's really good.
So I think communication is certainly one of the key aspects of any healthy relationship, right? What do you think are some other ones that, you know, you see successful couples have in their relationships?
I think one thing I learned before I met Santi, but like from watching my friends, like I've had some friends, one of my best friends I've known since kindergarten, and we're still very close. And similarly, like I have another good friend from elementary school. And before like I had met Santi, I watched them get into relationships. They got married, they started having children and stuff. And I remember talking to them. And the big thing that like often stood out to me was like relationships are a choice. And I think that maybe that's something you kind of learn like over time in relationships. But I also think like, you know, movies and like TV shows and like kind of portrays this persona or this like idea that like, oh, you're going to fall in love with this guy and it's just going to be amazing. And if like you don't like them at some point, then you're not supposed to be together or like something like that. Right. I remember having conversations with my friend one day, and her now husband were like in a tough spot. And she was like texting me about it. And she's like, but I'm going to go. I'm going to get off the couch and I'm going to go in bed with him. And she's like, because I'm choosing to be in this relationship, even when it's hard, like even when I don't want to. And like, I really carried that like forward into like this relationship. And like, I'm like, okay, like I don't like you some days. And like, that's okay.
Yeah. You know, somebody, I think Dan Martell says this, right? Santi, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, I've quit a million things, but I never quit on my worst day. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it means like everyone's going to have hard times. Right. But make that decision not when you're emotionally distraught. Make the decision when you're neutral. Right.
Yeah. Or when something is good. Are you okay to walk away?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Just remind me of that biking. Yeah.
Because one of the things we end up we have a few maybe family rules, but one of the ones that Debbie kind of came up with was you never say whether you like something or don't until the end of it.
You have to see it through, and then we can have a discussion about like how you feel about it. And this came about because we were mountain biking together. I love mountain biking. And out in Pennsylvania, like we mountain bike and we're like on this like really long, like arduous uphill climb, and he's behind me and I just hear him like, and I'm like, are you good? And he's like, you know, I don't really think I like mountain biking. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, I don't think I like mountain biking. And like, it's one of my favorite things. So I'm like, this guy, like, he doesn't know, blah, blah, blah. And then we get to the top of this mountain, and then it's all downhill from there. And he's like, woo, this is so fun. And then at the end of that, I was like, we need to talk. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I have a family rule I'm implementing. I'm like, you don't get to decide, like, whether you like something or not until the whole thing is done. And he's like,
does that pertain to broccoli too?
Yes. Yeah. You have
gotta
to
finish
see
all your broccoli See it through.
For life.
Just checking. All right, Santi, I want to circle back to the flipping. Like, if anyone here is listening, you've built a really cool portfolio, and I think that you've done it really smart by keeping some properties, flipping others. Right? You need to have the cash flow coming in, and you can get that through flips. But you build long-term wealth by holding on to them and creating rentals. And it's a lot easier to flip and see that big chunk of cash. But when you start building up rentals, it becomes this path to legacy wealth, right? And so for people who are kind of just getting started or finding like, this is a tough market. And there's no doubt, I feel like, there's a lot of things that are put out on Instagram that are not 100% accurate, right? Most of the people I know in real estate right now are struggling more than they did 3, 4, 5 years ago. So what are you doing in this market? And what would you advise people who are wanting to get into real estate and especially into flipping and rentals? What would you advise them to do to get started?
Oh, such a good question. I think Debbie also kind of was able to see kind of like the result of my mistakes early on. So initially I was thinking, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to hoard these properties. I'm just going to buy them and I'm going to keep them. And, like rich dad, poor dad, I'm going to build financial freedom. And there's so much truth and great things that come from like long-term wealth and, rentals. And I was running the numbers right, or we're buying it, purchasing it right and stuff. But you start forgetting that like long-term rentals, it's a, I call it long sword and short sword. It's a long sword. It will bring you that wealth. The cash flow will keep on increasing over time. As long as you maintain them, you maintain the tenant, you do a good job of property management, like they will last a lifetime, right? So I'm like, why am I not making money? I'm struggling. I'm kind of like filling up this line of credit. I'm filling up this other one, like a refinance didn't go well. And there was a piece there of like I'm doing the work full time in it. I certainly didn't have like another side thing. But what I realized was this is a great tool, but I need to butt it up with a short sword. So I need some cash engine. I need something that gives me capital. So with anybody starting out, like you need to have that short sword first and foremost, that you're able to pay the bills, you have some capital, strong financial, literacy is important, right? Like if you're just like willy-nilly with your money, even if you have good income coming in, it's going to be hard for you to kind of like build that long sword, but also start learning and getting into that long sword, the rental game, figuring out how to buy and keep property or, stocks or other avenues. Obviously, like we lean harder on the real estate side. So maybe 2 years, year and a half, 2 years ago, that's when I decided, I'm like, cool, we have an awesome portfolio. It's performing, it's going well. I want to now start doing flips for that active income. And that's allowed kind of things to flow, more private money, like lenders to trust and see the full cycle go all the way through, better contractors for our flips. Now we've probably completed 25 flips in the last 12 months or so. And we have another 25, 20, maybe 30 like in the pipeline now, whether it's about to be sold or just purchased. So like it's a nice little rotation. And now, okay, when we start wanting to keep more property and the numbers work out, cool. We don't have to pull every dime out of the refi because we can't. We have to pay everything back. It's cool if we leave a little bit in there. It's better if our monthly kind of like mortgage isn't as high. So that flow has allowed, I think, just money to kind of come and go, not have the feeling of leads. When leads come in, I have to take advantage, and that's that, right? It's like, hey, they're going to keep on coming as long as you build that marketing engine.
Yeah, that's so good, man. If anyone's listening, rewind that last 5 minutes and listen to that over and over again. That's so good, Santi. So good. And we find that we've kind of done a lot of the same thing. When we started, it was like minimum down, refi out, all that stuff, right? Like we want to have hoard cash, but in reality, and that's how you grow, right? Because then you move it to the next asset and the next and the next, and you build your portfolio like that. But at the same time, now we're in a position where it's like, you can't make the numbers work the way that you could back then. There's just been too much compression. And so we're putting a lot more money into our properties and keeping that money in there for the same purpose. Like, we'll keep that monthly nut low so that we are still cash flowing and we're still building equity in the property, right? But I think that was so good the way that you position that, and especially the analogy with the long sword and short sword. So good, so good.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to start wrapping it up a little bit, but I do want to ask you a few more questions. And the first one is, this is just because I'm curious about all these things. Who are 3 people or books or places that inspire you?
I would say on the people side, I think there's just like two people that I've just always start leaning back on whenever we're talking business or anything like that, or even lifestyle. Start talking about Dan Martell. We've met because of him and stuff. So there's a layer of just like, he has such strong foundations, and you see glimpses of foundations based on social media or what he says. But when you start diving in, it's like there's layers and layers underneath that. And on the business front, all business mainly, it's like Alex Hormozy is just also simplifies the equation so much that I'm almost like, cool, I have way too much going on. How do I reduce it? How do I compress it? That those two I think about on people's side.
For me, it's certainly different. My my interest in Dan Martell and Alex Hormozy is only through Santi. So I don't know. Recently I've been reading the book, you've probably heard of it, Mindset by Carol Dweck.
I've read it.
And
Fantastic.
and I've read it. So good, right? I read it years ago, but for some reason recently I've been like drawn to like reading it again.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks a lot in the book about, fixed versus growth mindset and stuff. And so more recently I've been really diving into just like people who like are kind of the underdogs, or who have come from like maybe less and sort of like developed this growth mindset and sort of changed their life because of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I have people per se that I'm like, oh, this is my like inspiration or like my idol or something like that. But I've always loved like that kind of story, and especially when it comes to like sports and things like that. So,
Nice.
and then of course for me, like nature, like, I don't know, I just find so much like peace and like, I don't know, like a centeredness by being in nature, like whether it's the ocean or the mountains or
And
my garden.
it's so interesting because they say like before Debbie, like I would maybe have a grasp of construction. I'd be able to get construction guys to do whatever they need or whatever. And one thing is like having a house built. The other thing is like seeing that feeling that you get when like somebody like Debbie puts that feminine touch or those plans. And I'm like, oh, you come home and there's just a layer of like tranquility, and just there's something that like inside of me, I'm like, we're going to go and get a nicer house in a bigger yard.
Yeah.
That way you can do the same thing. We're just going to have more of it.
I love that. You guys are answering my next question already. I was going to ask you, how do you find peace? But it sounds like you're already writing that book already.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked a lot about this because like our backgrounds from a religious, like spiritual side are pretty different. Like when we first met, he still is like, goes to church a little bit more than I do. Like I didn't grow up in like a religious household, or church wasn't like a focal point or anything. And like it was a conversation for a while before we got married and stuff, like, oh, how would we raise kids and things like that. And I think what I ultimately learned from like having conversations with him is like, I feel like most connected to something spiritual, something peaceful, like when I'm outside. And like I used to live in Colorado and Montana and stuff, and like the expansiveness of it, like something with like being outside is like it for me. Like if I'm like, if you ever can't find me, just like go into the mountains, I'll be there. Like, love it.
I'm 100% the same way.
Yeah.
One of the pieces on my side, it's there's a layer of when I start feeling stressed, or I start feeling too many things, overwhelmed and stuff. I start noticing that I'm like really inside of me and like what I could accomplish, and I start kind of forgetting. I'm like, hey, God's taking care of me. He's got me, and just start reminding myself of that. I'm like, oh, I just start letting myself go. I start relaxing a little bit more. I'm like, all right, let me put my best foot forward, and being able to realize I'm not going to take care of every ball. There's some are going to drop, but we're going to put our best foot forward. I have this layer of like knowing like he's got me. And with that, I'm like, cool, I can do anything. So like a layer of confidence, or like I guess a big layer of confidence comes when I get out of my head and just knowing like he's taking care of me.
So good.
Knowing what you both know now on this journey of life, what's one thing you would whisper to your younger self?
You can go,
Yeah. I think a lot of times there's layers of maybe real estate investors are like, oh, I need to get more doors, or I need to do the next flip, or right. It's like, it's not about that. It's not about the amount of doors you have or what you do. It's the person that you're becoming in the process. So it's like, if you keep on like remembering that section, it's like, it's okay. I'm where I'm supposed to be, and it's all good.
I think I would go back further. I would like probably talk to like 6-year-old Debbie, and I would just say something along the lines of like, I don't know, something along the lines of like, whatever, like what you have to say and like who you are matters. Like, even if it's like disrupting the peace or like being a bother, like it matters. And like, it's something I've learned more recently. And I wish I would have known that like 30 years ago,
Yeah. Wow. Guys, we'd like to end the show by saying we learn, we share, and we grow. What is something that you learned recently that's helped you to kind of just see things differently?
I think on my side, it's been sometimes we try to be perfect and not have anything drop. And I think knowing the difference of like a dumpster fire and a kitchen fire, Dan talks about it, but just knowing that, hey, if there's friction point between Debbie and I want to make sure that I'm canceling whatever meeting I need to, even if I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings, and knowing that, hey, let's go and let's work through this, or I want to make sure you know that I'm here for you, just as an example. And it's okay to let some things burn if they're not your main priority.
That's good.
That's good. What have I learned? I think just like what we've been talking about, like being more present, and that like, I think it's been a lot of like recently, especially in the last year, of just like me growing into like I said earlier, like I don't have to like be successful or get all these accolades or things like that to like matter. So
yeah,
that's like a huge thing.
So good.
You have a very confident, content presence, which is really great. And that's a learned behavior that does not come naturally. So you've been showing up and doing the work. So
thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you both for coming on, talking to us, and sharing so much good information and tactical steps for people to try and implement. If our audience wants to connect with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Instagram's been like the place where it's been more active, and mine is S Martinez 74 kg.
Yeah, mine too. I'm definitely not as active on Instagram as he is, but I'm at D Snacks.
Perfect.
I love it.
Where does the snacks come from?
Little Debbie Snacks. Like when I was in college when Instagram like became more of a thing, and I had college roommates at the time, and they called me Snacks because of Debbie Snacks.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you again so much for joining us. We really appreciate you guys coming on. Have an incredible rest of your day.
Thank you. This was great.
Thanks for being part of the family today. If you want a closer look at our journey through real life, business, and all the wild adventures, follow us on Instagram at Our Family Invest. And for free resources to help you on your own path, head to ourfamilyinvest.com.
If you like this episode, send it to a friend. And if you're feeling extra generous, drop us a quick review. It really helps us grow this community. Thank you so much for being part of our family today. We really, truly appreciate you.